Hello and welcome to this trigger tutorial. Today I'm going to talk to you about groups and salvo control. Now first of all we'll load in some sample audio. Trigger comes with various free sample audio files available to use, and I'm just going to load up these simple number idents 1 to 5. I'll select this range of buttons and I'll go to button and I'm going to assign those all to a group, group 1. And you'll see the little indicator here on the tag section of these buttons shows that they're assigned to group 1. Then I'm going to go to project options, and if you see now I can control the visibility of groups of buttons here. And if I uncheck the group 1 box and click done, you'll notice that those buttons, because they're in group 1, are all hidden. I get a little X when I'm in grid layout mode on Trigger with my Trigger project, and that's just to show that these buttons, these grid spaces, are actually occupied with buttons that are not visible. I obviously couldn't add another button into that position. So the groups can be used for hiding and displaying buttons as you wish. That's one use for them. So for now I'll make those all visible again, and I'm going to add some trigger buttons onto the form. Now I will just simply add trigger button, and then I'm going to call this one cycle. I'm going to call this one sequence. There's another one, and I'll call this one fire, and I'll add another one. And no, I won't for now. We'll keep that as it is. Get rid of that. Okay, so I'm going to assign all these trigger buttons to the same group. Doesn't matter what group, but obviously I want it to control all the buttons in group 1. And then I right click on the tag section and go to salvo control, and you can see a list of all the salvo control functions that are available to a trigger button. You'll notice they come in groups of 3 types of scope: all, which obviously relates to every button in your project; cue sheet, which has a scope of all buttons in the visible cue sheet; and group, which relates to the scope of all buttons in that group. And obviously that is the scope that we're dealing with today. Just out of interest, on an audio button, audio buttons also have salvo control, but they don't have the same range of functions available, or actions that are available as salvo control. So trigger buttons have a more powerful range of scope in terms of their salvo control. So this first button, which is trigger button cycle, I'm going to set to cycle group. The second button I'm going to set to sequence group, and the third button I'm going to set to fire group. Now the cycle function will apply to all the audio buttons in that group, and it will play each one of these buttons in strict order of their order within the cue sheet. So if I click the trigger button once, it will play the first sample,
2,
then it will play the second,
3,
the third, and so on.
4, 5,
and then back to the beginning.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So it plays each audio button in strict sequence. The sequence function actually plays the buttons, the first button that is available in that sequence. So it doesn't necessarily cycle through all the buttons. It will just simply play the first one in that sequence of buttons that is not playing. So if I click this button once, it will play the first sample in that sequence. I click it again, it still plays button 1. However, if I click it twice, so that the second time I click button 1 is still playing, it will play the second button in the sequence.
1, 2.
And likewise if I click it 3 times in quick succession.
1, 2, 3.
So this could be used, for example, if you have, say, several thunderclap samples and you want to build up a thunderstorm sequence, and it will play the first thunderclap sample in the sequence. If that one is still playing, then obviously it will go to the next sample, and so on. That's just one use of it. The third trigger button that I added to the form was fire. So in this instance, it will just simply, when I click the trigger button, fire all 5 audio buttons in the group simultaneously. So there you see that working. Now the other function I'll just quickly show you of Salvo control is we'll look this time at an audio button. You'll notice we have lockout here, and you'll notice if we click lockout that it will now lock out everything in that group. The lockout period is set in project options, preferences, and we can set the lockout period here. At the moment it's set to 2 seconds. Okay, so if I fire this,
1,
everything else in that group is locked out for 2 seconds.
1, 2.
Okay, so it's
1.
It is itself locked out,
1,
but also everything in that group is locked out.
2, 3.
Obviously,
2,
these
3,
don't have the lockout
2,
assigned to
3.
them, so it won't apply on the, for these buttons. But that is another function of Salvo control. Finally, you can also program Salvo control to do various things, such as resetting your links. So if links have been disabled through a function, you can use that to reset links. So I hope you found that tutorial useful. A brief oversight of groups within Trigger and Trigger's Salvo control operation. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and can join me again for the next one.